Have you ever been told by your own child that you're nothing but a burden? That your time is up, and you should just hand over everything you've worked for? Well, let me tell you what happened when my son said those exact words to me. What I did next will shock you, but it changed my life forever. My name is Margaret, and at 68 years old, I thought I had seen it all. I raised 3 children as a single mother after my husband died when I was just 45. I worked 2 jobs for 23 years, scrubbing floors at night and serving coffee during the day, all to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table. Every penny I saved went toward that small 2-bedroom apartment in downtown Chicago that I called home for over 30 years. I thought I had raised my children right. I thought they understood the value of hard work, respect, and family. But on a cold Tuesday morning in February, my middle son David proved me wrong in the most heartbreaking way possible. "Mom, you're getting old," he said, standing in my living room with his arms crossed, his wife Jennifer smirking behind him. "You'll die soon anyway. Why are you being so selfish about this apartment?" Those words hit me like a physical blow. I was standing by my kitchen counter, holding the cup of coffee I had just poured, and I felt my hands start to shake. Not from age, not from weakness, but from pure shock and hurt. "Excuse me?" I managed to whisper. David rolled his eyes. "Look, Mom, be realistic. Jennifer and I need this place. We're young. We have our whole lives ahead of us. You're just taking up space. It's not like you're going to live forever." Jennifer, his wife of 3 years, stepped forward with that fake sweet smile she always wore around me. "What David means is, wouldn't it be nice to know that your apartment is staying in the family? We could take such good care of it." I set my coffee cup down with trembling hands. "This is my home, David. I've lived here for 32 years. I raised you in this apartment. And now it's time to let go," he said, coldly. "Mom, you barely leave this place anymore. You don't have friends. You don't have a life. What's the point of holding on to something you're not even really living in?" The cruelty of his words took my breath away. It was true that I had become more of a homebody in recent years. After retiring from my cleaning job at 65, I found comfort in my routines, my books, my small garden on the fire escape. But I wasn't dead. I wasn't ready to give up the one thing I had worked my entire life to keep. "I'm not giving you my apartment," I said quietly. David's face twisted with anger. "Then you're being incredibly selfish. Do you know how much we're struggling? Do you know how expensive rent is for people our age? We can't keep living in that tiny studio apartment. We want to start a family, Mom. Don't you want grandchildren?" The manipulation was clear, but it still stung. Of course I wanted grandchildren. Of course I wanted my children to be happy, but not at the expense of making myself homeless. "You can find your own place," I said, my voice getting stronger. "Like I did. Like every adult does." Jennifer stepped forward again, and this time, her mask slipped completely. "Listen, old lady, you're not going to live much longer anyway. Why make this difficult for everyone? Just sign the apartment over to us, and we'll make sure you have a nice little room somewhere until nature takes its course." I stared at this woman, this stranger who had married my son, and was now standing in my living room calling me old lady, and basically wishing for my death. And then I looked at David, waiting for him to defend me, to tell his wife she had gone too far. Instead, he nodded in agreement. "She's right, Mom. You're 68. How many good years do you realistically have left? 5? 10 if you're lucky? We have 40 or 50 years ahead of us. It just makes sense." In that moment, something inside me broke. Not my spirit, but my illusions. The illusion that my son loved me. The illusion that family meant something to him. The illusion that the woman who had sacrificed everything for her children mattered at all to the man standing in front of me. But here's what David and Jennifer didn't know about me. Here's what they had forgotten in their greed and cruelty. I wasn't just some helpless old woman waiting to die. I was Margaret Ellen Rodriguez, and I had survived poverty, widowhood, discrimination, and decades of backbreaking work to build the life I had. I had fight left in me that they couldn't even imagine. Get out, I said quietly. Mom, be reasonable. Get out, I shouted, and my voice filled the apartment with a power that surprised even me. Get out of my home right now, and don't come back until you remember how to speak to your mother with respect. David's face flushed red. Fine, but don't come crying to us when you're lonely and need help. Don't expect us to take care of you when you get sick or when you can't manage on your own anymore. I wouldn't dream of it, I replied. Jennifer grabbed David's arm. Come on, honey. She's obviously too senile to understand what's best for everyone. They left, slamming my door so hard that my neighbor Mrs. Chen knocked on the wall to check if I was okay. I stood in my living room for a long time after they were gone, looking around at the home I had loved and protected for over 3 decades. The apartment wasn't much by most people's standards. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a small kitchen with appliances that had seen better days, and a living room barely big enough for a couch and a coffee table. But every inch of it told the story of my life. The scuff marks on the hardwood floors from my children's toy cars, the height marks on the doorframe where I had measured David, his older brother Marcus, and his younger sister Rosa as they grew. The small crack in the bedroom wall that I had never bothered to fix because it reminded me of the earthquake we had weathered together when David was just 8 years old. This was my sanctuary, my accomplishment. My proof that I had survived and thrived despite everything life had thrown at me. And my own son wanted to take it away from me because he thought I was going to die soon. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying the conversation in my head, wondering if I had been too harsh, if maybe I should consider their request. After all, David was my child. I had always taught my children that family comes first, that we take care of each other. Was I being selfish by holding on to this apartment? By 3 a.m., I had my answer. No, I was not being selfish. I was being human. The next morning, I called my daughter Rosa. At 35, she was the youngest of my 3 children and the only one who still called me regularly. She lived in California with her husband and 2 young daughters, and while we didn't see each other often, she had never made me feel like a burden. Mom, is everything okay? You sound upset. I told her everything. David's visit, Jennifer's comments, the demand for my apartment, the casual cruelty of being told I would die soon anyway. Rosa listened in stunned silence. Oh my God, Mom. I can't believe David said that to you. I can't believe Jennifer had the nerve to call you an old lady in your own home. I keep wondering if I'm wrong, I admitted. Maybe I should help them. Maybe I am being selfish. Mom, listen to me very carefully, Rosa said, and her voice was fierce with protective love. You are not wrong. You are not selfish. You are not required to give up your home because your son thinks you're going to die soon. That apartment is yours. You earned it. You deserve to live in it for as long as you want to. But what if he's right? What if I don't have much time left? Then that's all the more reason to spend it in the place you love, with your books and your plants and your memories. Mom, you're 68, not 98. You could have 20 or 30 more years ahead of you. Good years. Don't let David's greed make you feel like your life is over. After I hung up with Rosa, I felt better, but still unsettled. I decided to call Marcus, my oldest son. At 42, he had always been the responsible one, the peacemaker in the family. If anyone could give me perspective on David's behavior, it would be Marcus. Mom, I'm so sorry, Marcus said when I told him what had happened. I had no idea David was thinking like this. Jennifer has really changed him. Do you think I should consider it? I asked. Maybe he has a point about me not needing all this space. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Mom, can I ask you something? Are you happy? In your apartment? Yes, very happy. Do you feel safe there? Yes. Do you want to move? No, not at all. Then there's your answer. Mom, you spent your whole life taking care of us. You gave up everything for us. You deserve to have something that's just yours. Don't let David guilt you into giving up your home. But Marcus also shared something that made my blood run cold. Mom, I have to tell you something else. David called me last week asking about your finances. He wanted to know if you had any savings, any life insurance, anything valuable. I told him it was none of his business, but I think this apartment thing is just the beginning. I think he's already planning for when you're gone. The realization hit me like a truck. This wasn't just about the apartment. This was about David seeing me as nothing more than an inheritance waiting to happen. He wasn't just being cruel. He was being calculating. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in years. I got dressed up, put on my best coat, and went for a walk around my neighborhood. I wanted to see it through fresh eyes, to remind myself why I loved living here. Walked past the corner grocery store where Mr. Kim always saved the best apples for me. I stopped by the small park where I used to take my children to play, where I now sometimes sat to read on sunny afternoons. I visited the library where I volunteered once a week, helping elderly immigrants learn to read English. As I walked, I realized something that shocked me. I wasn't just some isolated old woman waiting to die. I had a life. I had routines and relationships and purposes that mattered. I had Mrs. Chen next door who brought me soup when I was sick. I had the young mother upstairs who sometimes asked me to watch her toddler for an hour. I had the book club that met in my living room once a month. I had a community. I had value. I had worth. And I had absolutely no intention of giving any of it up because my son thought I was taking up space. When I got home that evening, I found David waiting outside my building. He looked like he had been there for a while, and his expression was softer than it had been the day before. Mom, can we talk? Against my better judgment, I let him come upstairs. I've been thinking about what I said yesterday, he began, and, for a moment, I thought he was going to apologize. I think I came across too harsh, but Mom, I still think you should consider our request. We're not asking you to move out tomorrow. We could work something out where you stay in the smaller bedroom, and Jennifer and I take the master bedroom. We could all live together. I stared at him in disbelief. You want me to become a tenant in my own apartment? Think of it as becoming a grandmother in your own home, he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. When we have kids, you'll be right there to help take care of them. Wouldn't that be nice? So I would give up my home to become a live-in babysitter? David's fake smile faltered. Mom, why are you being so difficult? We're trying to find a solution that works for everyone. No, David. You're trying to find a solution that works for you and Jennifer. What about what works for me? What works for you is accepting reality, he snapped. And there was the cruel son from yesterday. You're old, Mom. You're alone. We're offering to take care of you, and you're being ungrateful. I don't need you to take care of me, I said, firmly. I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself. David laughed, and it was a cold, mocking sound. Really? When was the last time you went out with friends? When was the last time you went on a date? When was the last time you did anything that wasn't just existing? His words were designed to hurt, and they did. But they also made me angry. Angrier than I had been in years. When was the last time you called me just to see how I was doing? I shot back. When was the last time you visited me without wanting something? When was the last time you treated me like a human being instead of an obstacle to your happiness? David's face went red. I don't have time for this, Mom. Jennifer and I have given you a reasonable offer. Think about it, but don't take too long to decide. Our lease is up at the end of next month, and we need to know where we're going to live." "Then, you better start apartment hunting," I said. "Because you're not living here." David stood up abruptly. "You know what, Mom? Fine. Be stubborn. Be selfish. But don't expect me to come running when you need help. Don't expect me to visit you in whatever nursing home you end up in when you can't take care of yourself anymore." "I won't," I replied quietly. "I won't expect anything from you ever again." After he left, I sat in my living room and cried. Not just for the loss of my relationship with David, but for the death of the illusion that I had raised a good man. The David who stood in my living room threatening me was not the little boy I had rocked to sleep, not the teenager I had stayed up all night helping with homework, not the young man I had been so proud of when he graduated from college. That David was gone, if he had ever really existed at all. But here's what happened next, and this is where my story really begins. The next morning, I wake up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I made myself a cup of coffee, sat at my small kitchen table, and made a decision that would change everything. I called my lawyer. "Mrs. Rodriguez," Mr. Patterson said when I explained the situation. "I'm so sorry you're going through this. Unfortunately, this kind of thing is more common than you might think. Adult children who see their aging parents as obstacles to their financial goals." "What are my options?" I asked. "Well, the good news is that the apartment is entirely in your name. David has no legal claim to it whatsoever. You can do whatever you want with it. You can leave it to him in your will, leave it to someone else, or sell it, and spend every penny if you choose to." Sell it. The word echoed in my mind all day. What if I did sell it? What if I took control of my own narrative, instead of waiting for David to write it for me? That afternoon, I called a real estate agent. Just to see. Just to explore my options. "Mrs. Rodriguez, this is a lovely apartment in a great neighborhood," she said after looking around. "With the way the market is right now, I'd estimate you could get anywhere from $280,000 to $320,000 for this place." I nearly choked on my tea. "That much?" "Oh yes. Location is everything in real estate, and you're in a very desirable area. Lots of young professionals want to live here. $300,000. I had no idea my little apartment was worth so much money. In my mind, it was just home. But apparently, to the rest of the world, it was a valuable piece of real estate. That night, I couldn't sleep again. But this time, it wasn't because I was upset. It was because I was excited. For the first time in months, I was thinking about possibilities instead of limitations. What could I do with $300,000? I could travel. I had always wanted to see Europe, to visit the places my grandparents had told me stories about. I could take a cruise, stay in nice hotels, eat in fancy restaurants. Could move somewhere warm. I had always hated Chicago winters. What if I bought a small house in Florida or Arizona? What if I could sit on my own porch and watch the sunrise every morning? I could help Rosa with her children's college funds. I could donate to the literacy program at the library. I could finally take those art classes I had always wanted to try. I could live. Really live. Instead of just existing in the same four walls, waiting for David's prediction about my death to come true. The more I thought about it, the more excited I became. And the more I realized that David had actually done me a favor by showing me who he really was, by making it clear that he saw me as nothing more than a burden to be managed. He had freed me from any obligation to consider his feelings when making decisions about my life. The next morning, I called the real estate agent back. "I'd like to list my apartment," I said. "Wonderful. When were you thinking of putting it on the market?" "As soon as possible." Within a week, I had signed the listing agreement, and the for sale sign was up in my window. Within 2 weeks, I had 3 offers, all above asking price. Within a month, I had accepted an offer for $315,000 from a young couple who fell in love with the apartment's charm and character. I didn't tell David any of this was happening. The closing was scheduled for 6 weeks later, which gave me time to sort through 32 years of accumulated belongings and figure out what came next. I spent days going through old photos, letters, and mementos. I kept the things that mattered and donated or threw away the things that didn't. It was liberating in a way I hadn't expected. Every box I packed, every item I let go of, felt like I was shedding not just possessions, but the weight of other people's expectations. I also spent time researching my options for what to do next. I looked at retirement communities in warm climates, small houses in scenic towns, even the possibility of buying an RV and seeing the country. But the more I researched, the more one option kept calling to me. There was a 55-plus community in Sedona, Arizona, that looked like paradise. Small houses with big windows and mountain views. A community center with art studios and a library. Walking trails and social clubs and people who were embracing this chapter of their lives instead of just enduring it. I could buy a house there for $180,000, which would leave me with over $100,000 to live on, travel with, and enjoy. For the first time in my life, I would have financial security and freedom. I put a deposit down on a house site unseen. It was a risk, but it felt like the right kind of risk, the kind that led to adventures instead of regrets. 3 weeks before the closing on my apartment, David showed up again. This time, he noticed the for sale sign immediately. "Mom, what the hell is this?" he demanded, storming into my apartment. "It's a for sale sign," I said calmly. "I'm selling the apartment." His face went white, then red, then purple. "You can't do this." "Actually, I can. It's my apartment." But where are you going to live?" "I'm moving to Arizona." "Arizona? Mom, you can't move to Arizona. You don't know anyone." "There! You've never even been there. I'll make friends." And I've never been to a lot of places. That's part of what makes it exciting. David started pacing my living room like a caged animal. "This is insane, Mom. You're making a huge mistake. You're too old to start over somewhere new." "I'm 68, David. Not 98. I have plenty of years left to enjoy a new adventure. But what about family? What about staying close to your children?" I looked at him with amazement. "You mean the son who told me I was going to die soon and should give him my apartment? The son who called me selfish for wanting to keep my own home? That family?" David had the grace to look embarrassed. "Mom, I didn't mean it like that." "Yes, you did. You meant it exactly like that. And now you're upset because you're realizing that I'm not going to die tomorrow and leave you an inheritance. You're upset because I'm going to live my life and spend my money and enjoy myself instead of sitting here waiting for your next visit, where you tell me how inconvenient my existence is." "That's not fair," David protested. "I love you, Mom." "No, David. You love the idea of me. You love having a mother who doesn't require anything from you, but who might leave you something valuable when she dies. But you don't love me. If you loved me, you would never have said the things you said to me." Jennifer, who had been standing silently by the door, finally spoke up. "Mrs. Rodriguez, you're being very unfair to David. He's been under a lot of stress with work and trying to find a place to live. He didn't mean to hurt your feelings." I turned to look at this woman who had called me an old lady, who had told me I didn't have much time left, who had stood in my living room and basically wished for my death. "Jennifer," I said sweetly, "I don't recall asking for your opinion. This is between me and my son." She started to protest, but David put his hand on her arm to stop her. "Mom, please," David said, and for the first time, he sounded desperate instead of demanding. "Don't do this. Don't sell the apartment. We can work something out. I'm sorry I said those things. I was just frustrated about our living situation." "I'm sure you were," I said. "But you know what, David? I'm not frustrated anymore. For the first time in years, I'm excited about my future. I'm excited about waking up in a place where I can see mountains instead of buildings. I'm excited about meeting new people who might actually enjoy my company instead of seeing me as a burden. I'm excited about finally living my life for me, instead of waiting around to be useful to other people. But Mom, the apartment closes in 3 weeks, I said firmly. I'm flying to Arizona next week to finalize the purchase of my new house. I'm starting a new chapter of my life, and I'm doing it without worrying about what anyone else thinks about it. David stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Maybe he was. I can't believe you're doing this, he said quietly. I can't believe it took me this long, I replied. After they left, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders that I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying. For so long, I had been living my life in reaction to other people's needs and expectations. First as a wife, then as a mother, then as a dutiful old woman who was supposed to gracefully fade into the background of other people's lives. But I wasn't ready to fade. I was ready to bloom. The next few weeks passed in a blur of packing, paperwork, and planning. Rosa flew in from California to help me pack and to say goodbye. She was completely supportive of my decision and even a little envious. Mom, I'm so proud of you, she said as we wrapped dishes in newspaper. You're showing us all that life doesn't end at 60 or 70. You're showing us that it's never too late to choose happiness. Marcus also came to help, bringing his teenage daughter Sarah with him. Sarah was fascinated by her grandmother's bold decision. Grandma, aren't you scared? She asked as we sorted through old photos. Terrified, I admitted, but scared in a good way. Scared like you are before you get on a roller coaster or jump off a diving board. Scared, but excited. I think you're so cool, Sarah said. When I'm your age, I want to be brave like you. Sweetheart, I told her, don't wait until you're my age to be brave. Be brave now. Be brave your whole life. David came by one more time, the day before the closing. He came alone this time without Jennifer, and he looked defeated. Mom, I owe you an apology, he said. A real one. I was horrible to you. I said things that were cruel and unforgivable. I got so caught up in my own problems that I forgot you're a person with feelings and dreams, and a right to live your life however you want to. I studied his face, looking for sincerity, and I found it. I accept your apology, I said. But David, this doesn't change my decision. I'm still moving to Arizona. I'm still starting a new life. I know, he said sadly. And I think you're right to do it. I think you're braver than I ever gave you credit for. We hugged goodbye, and for the first time in months, it felt like I was hugging my son instead of a stranger. The closing went smoothly. I signed the papers, handed over the keys, and walked out of the lawyer's office with a check for $315,000. It was the most money I had ever had in my life. That afternoon, I flew to Arizona. My new house was even more beautiful than the photos had shown. It was small, but perfect, with big windows that let in the desert light, and a patio where I could sit and watch the sunset every evening. The community was full of people like me, people who had decided that retirement was just another word for freedom. I joined the book club, took up painting, learned to play tennis, and made friends with women who had also decided that their best years weren't behind them. I traveled to Europe for 3 weeks and ate gelato in Rome and saw the northern lights in Norway. I took cooking classes and learned to make French pastries. I volunteered at the local animal shelter and fell in love with an old rescue dog named Charlie, who now keeps me company every morning on our walks. 6 months after I moved to Arizona, I got a call from David. He and Jennifer had found their own apartment, and they sounded happy. More importantly, David sounded different, humbler, more grateful. Mom, I just wanted to call and tell you that I'm proud of you, he said. I see your pictures on Facebook and you look happier than I've seen you in years." "I am happier," I said. "I'm living my life instead of just existing in it." "I'm sorry it took me so long to understand that," he said. "I'm sorry I almost ruined it for you." "You didn't ruin anything, David. In a strange way, you gave me exactly what I needed. You showed me that I was stronger than I thought, and that I deserved better than what I was accepting." A year later, Rosa and her family came to visit me for Christmas. We cooked dinner together in my sunny kitchen, and her daughters played with Charlie in the backyard, while the adults sat on the patio and watched the desert sunset. "Mom," Rosa said as we sat together that evening, "do you ever regret it? Selling the apartment, moving here, starting over?" I thought about it for a moment, looking around at the life I had built for myself, the friends I had made, the hobbies I had discovered, the adventures I had taken, the peace I had found. "Not for a single second," I said. "Best decision I ever made." Marcus brought his family to visit for my 70th birthday, and even David made the trip. We all gathered in my living room, and David stood up to make a toast. "To Mom," he said, raising his glass, "who taught us that it's never too late to be brave, never too late to choose happiness, and never too late to start over. Who showed us that family means supporting each other's dreams, not limiting them. And who proved that the best revenge against people who underestimate you is to live your best life." Everyone laughed and clinked glasses, and I felt a warmth in my chest that had nothing to do with the Arizona sun. But the best part of my story isn't the beautiful house, or the new friends, or even the improved relationship with my children. The best part is the woman I discovered I was when I stopped trying to be the woman everyone else expected me to be. I learned that I'm adventurous and social and creative. I learned that I'm stronger than I thought, and braver than I imagined. I learned that I have value beyond my usefulness to other people, and that my happiness matters just as much as anyone else's. Most importantly, I learned that life doesn't end when you turn 60 or 70 or 80. It just becomes different. And different can be beautiful if you have the courage to embrace it. Today, as I sit on my patio with Charlie at my feet, watching the sun set over the red rocks of Sedona, I sometimes think about that Tuesday morning when David told me I would die soon. He was wrong about a lot of things that day, but he was especially wrong about that. I'm not dying. I'm living. Really, truly living. And I plan to keep living, fully and joyfully, for many years to come. So the next time someone tells you that you're too old, too set in your ways, too late to the party, remember Margaret from Chicago, who sold everything at 68 and started over in the desert. Remember that your dreams don't have expiration dates, and that the most beautiful chapters of your life might be the ones you haven't written yet. Remember that you are never too old to bloom. 5 years later. I'm 73 now, and I just got back from a 2-week cruise to Alaska with my friend Dorothy from the book club. Next month, I'm flying to California to help Rosa with her new baby. And in the spring, I'm taking an art class in Tuscany. David calls me every Sunday now, and we have real conversations about real things. He's become a father himself, and parenthood has given him a new appreciation for the sacrifices parents make for their children. He brings his daughter to visit me twice a year, and she loves hearing stories about her brave grandma who moved to the desert and started a whole new life. Thayat. Other day, she asked me the same question her cousin Sarah had asked years ago. "Grandma, weren't you scared?" "Terrified," I told her, just like I had told Sarah. But sometimes being scared is just excitement wearing a disguise. She thought about that for a moment, then smiled. "I want to be like you when I grow up, Grandma. Brave and happy and free." "You can be," I told her. "You can be anything you want to be, sweetheart. That's the secret of life. You get to choose who you become, no matter how old you are. And that, my dear friends, is the truth I want to leave you with. It's never too late to choose happiness. It's never too late to be brave. It's never too late to bloom. Your best life is waiting for you. All you have to do is have the courage to claim it.